Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. The first video showed what the Intel Arc Pro B70 looks like on paper. This one is about what happens when you actually push it. We are talking ComfyUI, LTX 2.3, OpenClaw, and local language models. Does it just look good in a spec sheet, or does it actually belong in a real AI workflow? Let's find out. For the testing, I am running the B70 on my Gigabyte X670E Aorus Master AM5 test bench with a Ryzen 9 7950X, 64 gigabytes of DDR5, and Windows 11 Pro. Before we get into the results, let us quickly talk about what we are actually testing. ComfyUI is a node-based interface for AI image and video generation, which basically means you build a workflow by connecting blocks together instead of just pressing one simple generate button. That makes it incredibly flexible, but it also means it is a much better stress test for a GPU, because you can push VRAM, memory bandwidth, and driver stability much harder than with a basic app. LTX 2.3 is the AI video model we are running inside ComfyUI. Think of ComfyUI as the engine room and LTX 2.3 as the workload sitting on top of it. If the card can handle this combination smoothly, that tells us a lot about how it will behave in real AI workflows, not just simple benchmark charts. In other words, this test is not just about whether the Intel Arc Pro B70 can generate something once. It is about whether it can stay stable, hold memory, and keep working when the workflow gets heavy. The reason this follow-up matters is simple. AI workloads are messy. A card can look brilliant in one app and fall apart in another. ComfyUI tests stability, LTX 2.3 tests memory pressure, OpenClaw tests whether the card can survive a real assistant workload, and local language models tell you whether the VRAM is actually useful or just a spec sheet flex. And yes, the biggest complaint in the community is still software maturity. A lot of the old Intel setup guides are stale, and some of them will send you down the wrong path fast. If the guide you found is built around an ancient Intel extension for PyTorch command from last year, treat it like a museum piece, not a roadmap. Starting with ComfyUI, the first thing I noticed was that the card is only as good as the stack you put on top of it. If you grab random old instructions, especially the ones built around outdated PyTorch or old Intel extension for PyTorch setups, you can make the whole experience feel worse than it really is. The newer XPU path was the one that mattered here, and once I switched to the right build, the workflow stopped fighting me. With LTX 2.3, the interesting part was not just that it ran, it was that the B70 had enough room to keep the workflow from instantly falling over when the graph got heavier. Bigger scenes, more steps, and higher resolution runs were where the 32 gigabytes of GDDR6 started to matter. You are not spending your time watching it spill memory and choke at the first sign of ambition. That is the difference between a card that technically supports AI work and a card that you can actually use every day. The real test was repeatability. One successful render means nothing. 5 successful runs in a row means the platform is getting somewhere. The B70 was much more convincing here. The results displayed should give you an idea of how fast a simple 20-second clip will take to produce. Remember, if you add more effects and LoRa, it will take much longer. It did not feel like a card that only works when the stars align. It felt like a card that can be pushed, cooled properly, and then trusted to keep going. I was able to get the same short clip of 20 seconds to produce consistently with the same prompt. The actual clip varies a little bit, but what matters here is that it works. Will this help you produce cinematic videos that rivals Hollywood? Probably not, but it will definitely fill that craving to produce fun and short AI videos. Getting this to work took a lot of hours of research and trials. And keep in mind that this was all done on Windows. I don't even want to know how much harder it will be on Linux, so sorry guys, I will not attempt to run it on Linux. Now let us talk about OpenClaw, my AI personal agent. This is where the B70 started to feel different from a simple generative art card. A little background on this. I have been using OpenClaw to manage my Unraid server and network infrastructure at the studio for a while. I use both cloud and local model like Gemini and DeepSeek, so getting to test local LLM models in OpenClaw was something I was very looking forward to. After all, isn't the dream to be able to have your own local sysops agent and not pay for tokens? Anyway, agents are messy. They plan, call tools, retry, route through prompts, and keep a lot of context in play. That means memory matters, stability matters, and latency matters. The good news is that OpenClaw was usable in a way that made the hardware feel more intentional than experimental. The bad news, however, is that setting it up takes forever, and the performance is underwhelming when compared to cloud models. It took me 2 weeks straight to get the correct stack up and running on an Ubuntu server with correct kernel versions, and picking the correct LLM. Once the stack was set up correctly, it successfully deployed subagents using the LLM, but the performance was subpar. The task either take too long and it was timing out, or it simply get lost and hallucinates. So, while the 32GB of VRAM gave me some hope that this will go well with some of the newer local models like Gemma 4 and Quinn 3.6, the actual performance of those models for OpenClaw sysops operations on the B70 failed spectacularly. This is the part people do not say loudly enough. Hardware is only half the story. I did try to run OpenClaw on an Ubuntu server OS with the correct supported kernel version, but performance was just not there. The Intel AI stack has improved, but it still rewards people who follow current documentation instead of ancient forum posts. This is especially true for Linux builds. The real lesson here is to focus on newer XPU-based PyTorch builds, OpenVINO, and the current Intel 1 API path, not the old copy-paste fixes that keep floating around in community threads. Throughout this entire testing period, I attempted 6 runtimes and only got 2 working. The runtimes I tried ranged from Ollama to IPEX LLM. A lot of these runtimes either bleed memory into the system RAM, or it will trade performance for stability, like Vulkan. With software maturity still not there, this entire testing saga feels like wasted effort to me. Given some more time, maybe Intel will release enough software support to make it work. But until then, you will be dealing with a lot of growing pains. Here is my final take. The Intel Arc Pro B70 is not the easy answer, but it is a much more serious AI card than most people give it credit for. If you want to use it for ComfyUI and LTX 2.3, it will definitely fulfill that role. However, if you are planning to use it with OpenClaw and local LLM, this card is definitely not the solution. If you have the money and system to run 3 of these together, then maybe it will be enough, but at that point, I would rather get a Blackwell RTX Pro 6000 to save myself the headaches of setting it up. So with that said, if you want a frictionless CUDA clone, keep moving. But if you want a large VRAM Intel card that can do some AI work, play games, and do some production work, this one deserves attention. Thanks for watching this follow-up on the Intel Arc Pro B70. Drop your questions in the comments and let me know what you think of the test. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.